Welcome to That's What She Pled, with attorneys Christina Goldberg and Julie Lurson from Lurson Goldberg LLC, law powered by women. It's time to shake up the old standards of law and of business. Join these two witty, intelligent, and sassy female business owners who are taking their industry by storm, challenging stereotypes and shattering ceilings. These two are on a mission to educate, empower, and support not only their own clients, but other powerhouse female entrepreneurs. Come for a laugh and stay for the vibe as Julie and Christina hold nothing back and share the truth of what it is to be female attorneys and business owners through discussion of current events, original stories, and inspiring guests. Now, on to the show.
Well, welcome everybody. Happy Tuesday, as Christy always says. This is Christina Goldberg. I'm here with my law partner, Julie Lurson. We are Law Powered by Women. And we are back today with our very own family law attorney, Lora Howell. We were able to introduce her to everybody. I don't remember what episode it was, a few episodes back, but we wanted to have her with us. So Julie and I did a little bit of pop culture. We did a little bit with Neil, and now it is Laura's turn. And not for nothing, phones are ringing off the hook for family law and divorces and paternity and custody and child support and all of that. So we're constantly seeing stuff in the news. So we thought this might actually be, well, I hate to use the word fun, but this could be fun.
Enlightening.
Enlightening. There we go.
Without being too serious. Just in case there's people who are curious, right?
Of course.
Exactly.
Although statistically, unfortunately, the odds are not inconsequential that it may be that if you're married, you might someday need someone like Lora on your side. Or if you're contemplating marriage, you might want to consult with someone such as Lora. Anyway, yeah, the statistics are the statistics. Especially once
it's interesting.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lora.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say it's interesting. The when you go from first marriage to second marriage, it increases significantly, and then from second to third, even more so.
Yeah,
that's what they say. I can see it, because how many times do you see somebody, the ink is barely dry and they're in a new relationship and they've decided they've found the one, and
right, their soulmate.
Right. Been there.
I heard an expert
Luckily didn't do anything about it, but
yeah.
I heard an expert say that you should take the number of years, half the number of years that you were married. So if you were married 10 years, you should take 5 years between
marriages,
your next, just to heal and process and do the hard work of getting well and whole.
And, you know, possibly die before you have a chance of getting
Julie.
I'm sorry. I guess I'm still in Neil mode.
Right. I was going to say
about estate planning.
Right,
but you know, if you're married for 40 years and you have to wait 20 till your next one, you know, at some point
that's
we don't live forever.
It's true.
Yeah.
You get married at 20, that puts you at 80 before you can be married again. Just saying.
That's
okay.
There's Julie getting in the weeds with her numbers. There we go. Right. Well, but that's the reason they say more than half of marriages end in divorce is actually, I think that first marriages is really closer to like 40%, but then the second and third marriages drag that average up because they are so much higher than the first marriage rate. So, and that's just us normal people. So I think those divorce rates are even higher among celebrities, and sort of talking about the pop culture theme. I mean, there's an awful lot that's been in the news about some pretty famous people lately. So for instance, we've got Tom Brady, the GOAT. Who doesn't know Tom Brady?
Our local hero.
Exactly. And Giselle, although did he move?
Well, I think he prefers the East Coast of Florida. I don't know. Miami.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think he bought a house down in Miami.
Another house.
Okay. He's dating another supermodel. I did see that.
I think he was just renting Derek Jeter's place over here when he was in Tampa.
That's true. They didn't buy. But yeah, I know. I saw he's already with another. She's pretty. He's already with another one. But with them, it took a little bit of hunting, but I know it was sort of like, okay, we're getting divorced, and then, okay, we're divorced. And how did that happen so easily and so quickly?
It has been said that they had an ironclad prenup. So everything was already decided. So really all they had to do was present the prenup and do some paperwork, submit it to the court, and it's done.
And it's not like either of them couldn't stand on their own 2 feet without the other.
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure Giselle's actually maybe worth more than he is. I feel like that's one of those things that probably is sort of a head scratcher, but hey, more power to her.
Yeah.
Anyway,
sure.
they were able to, probably in large part due to the fact that they had an ironclad prenup, but also because they had 2 kids together, and then, he also had another son that was certainly part of the family, and trying to protect the kids. Didn't need to get nasty about stuff.
Yes, and they both seemingly are very parent focused.
Right.
So there are a lot of questions I know people ask me, or people generally kind of Google searching, what are the standards in Florida? So when it comes to kid, what is required of these parents? Is there a standard sort of, we start at 50% and then we prove one parent's not worthy, or how does that work in Florida?
There's not an actual presumption yet. If the new bill gets signed into law by the governor, there will be an actual 50-50 time sharing presumption, which means whoever's opposed to the 50-50 is going to they will have the burden of proving why that's not in the best interest of the children. So the standard, and the gold standard in Florida, is the best interest of the child.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so everybody's on a level playing field.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so in practice, it ends up being that they start from the 50-50, but not if the parents agree otherwise. I mean, I've had clients who come in and for whatever reason, dad is either travels with his job, or there's some sort of extenuating circumstances, and they say, hey, I'm very much dad or mom. It can happen either way. And we very much love our children, but this is what's going to actually work best for our family, and they will do something different. But there's the caveat. The interesting thing is, with regard to child support, the more overnights you have with your child, the lighter the burden of child support is. So the concern is, oftentimes as a practitioner in family law, is that, are you just wanting overnights so you get a reduction in your child support, or is it because you've actively been involved in the children's life all along? So
I know I've acted as a guardian ad litem in some high conflict cases over basically child sharing. And I think in every instance, the parent that is opposing the change will assert that the other parent is doing it basically because of the money. That's what's motivating them. That's not necessarily been borne out in my experience, thankfully, but it definitely becomes an issue.
Is there a way to, Lora, how would you go about if you had a client saying that's the only reason, let's say dad wants the kids more, is to reduce his support obligation? How would you actually go about proving that?
Well, there are several different things we can do. We've got a lot of tools, and depending on the circumstances, one example is child time sharing interrogatories, where they actually have to swear to a series of questions. Did you participate in daily activities for the child? How often did you go to the doctor with the child? How often did you go to school events with the child? Parent-teacher conferences. I mean, there are a number of tangible things. And then on the flip side of that, I go through with my client and I will ask, I need you to the best possible, give me specific dates, give me specific times where they weren't involved, give me the daily routine, who's responsible. Why is it you can say you were responsible and the other parent wasn't? Maybe their work schedule made it impossible during those times. That's something else we ask in the interrogatories. What are your actual work hours?
And how would you defend
work
it?
Overtime. Well, we can look at the number of hours we get pay stubs, right? Those are mandatory that each party has to provide their pay stub. So if I've got a pay stub that shows 10 hours a week of overtime or 12 hours a week of overtime, likely there's a certain amount of time I know that you're not available to participate in the well-being of the child or the care of the child. I mean, there are a lot of ways to think about it, but usually if someone's lying about it, they trip up somewhere.
Well, and then in the background, we have the standing order, at least in our circuit, that really is meant to encourage parents to do the right thing by their kids by and large, and not engage in sabotaging behaviors and that sort of thing, which I guess can be a bit of a weapon if you need to, as well as hopefully an inducement. And, who knows, maybe it's even something that like some people had never thought of. Well, it's not okay to badmouth dad or something along those lines. But in any event, I presume that if you're found in violation of that, you will be found in contempt by the courts, potentially.
Yeah, there are a variety of different things that can happen. It's important to note that, I mean, it even goes as far as to say, don't text your child about what days and times. Don't use your child as a messenger or a go-between. Don't discuss the status of the case with your children. I mean, there are a whole lot of things that the standing family law order is fantastic, because it's nice to be able to say to opposing counsel, listen, my client is saying your client is doing this. Tell them to stop, please, but tell them to stop. We don't want to go to court and have a hearing over this. It's a waste of resources for our clients as well as the court. So let's just all abide by this.
Because, and by the way, it's not helping your case if you're looking for
right, exactly. And it doesn't. I mean, those are things that can certainly be brought up in front of the judge, and whether it's willful and contumacious or they just don't know. But they also use the parenting class as a place to teach regarding these things. These requirements are based on actual psychological testing and statistics of what harms children. So it is founded in what really is best for children.
And we all know it's easy to have a kid. It's raising kids is tough, whether you're regardless of your intentions or your insights and experience.
And something I like to say to my clients is, look, obviously you have some hurt, maybe some trauma. You've got a lot of things going on with this other person, but you're going to have to co-parent with them for a period of time. And for some of them, it's 15 years, 12 years,
18.
18 sometimes, right? And you're going to have to co-parent. And the other thing is, children, and when you explain this to someone, a light bulb kind of goes off. They identify as part mommy and part daddy.
Yeah.
And if you say daddy's bad all the time, or you say mommy's bad all the time, they internalize that to mean that they're half bad. And so it's just not good.
Yeah. It's so touch and go. But yeah, I mean, we're in Sarasota, or in the 12th, we're expected to, literally confer with each other, work with each other, and agree on all major parenting decisions, education, healthcare, all of that, extracurricular activities, religion, discipline. And yeah, I've heard some just horror stories, some great stories where divorcees are able to treat each other like adults and with dignity, and put the kids first. And then, of course, we all hear the stories about kids are used as pawns.
Or people are just so traumatized and hurt that they really just are thinking like a child and not like a parent, and engaging in really
I'm
hurtful conduct.
We've had some really great, some that I'm just like, my hat is off to you for being so above board and really wanting and caring about what is best for your children.
Yeah. Well, and it's so actually that brings up a kind of a good point, Laura. I think that across the board, whether it's our injury clients, your clients, our family law clients, and Neil's clients, we have really fantastic clients. I think we have just very upstanding clients who need our help for very legitimate reasons. You know, we all end up working with somebody later on and go, oh gosh, that didn't feel right. But all of the time, I get asked, hey, from people who don't know we do family law or who don't know we've brought you in, hey, who would you refer to for family law? Or who's just a shark? Who's a tiger? Who's just going to not let him get away with anything? And it's like everybody wants that fighter. And I get that question. And it's the funniest thing to me because obviously Laura is the one that we love and we're going to refer to and trust. But Laura also is able to see through that. Listen, you want me to be a tiger. You want me to be a shark. I will spend your money all day long. But let me be the first to tell you that's not going to get you anywhere. Right. I mean, am I crazy to say that, or isn't that kind of
it's going to get you to an empty bank account?
Yeah. I will often say the only people that win in a super contentious and you're fighting over the least little thing is the attorneys.
Right.
And I say it straight up. I can advocate. I do advocate for my clients, but part of advocating isn't necessarily seeing where we can do the most damage.
Well, we're also counselors at law, which means, you need to share the downsides to certain seemingly whatever actions they think they want you to take. I think
right.
you want to shine a light on all that and
absolutely
the ramifications of it. Chief among them, obviously, if there are children involved, how that can really cause a lot of damage. So
each individual client has to decide what is the sword they're going to fall on.
Yeah. And it's so tough. I mean, we get it even in Julie and I on our end, clients that we know strategically, logistically, the whole 9 yards, we are doing what is in our client's best interest. And what we decide is in our client's best interest, the client gets really mad at. But it's sort of the same thing. I'll fight to the death over that piece of Tupperware. Is that what you want me to do? I'll be your shark, but that's going to cost you $5,000, that piece of Tupperware.
Right. Why not go buy your own?
Right. And it doesn't make you a pushover. What it does is it makes you a good steward of your client's finances and I think a good fiduciary, really. And again, like the Julie referenced, a counselor, we really are. I feel like I spend all day counseling. You must even more. Yeah.
Well, so I guess, especially when kids are involved, let's try to be like Tom Brady, the greatest of all time, and Giselle.
Although leave it to the news. I just saw something. I mean, I don't watch the news, but somebody just did. Giselle's upset that Tom went somewhere and didn't help the kids with Mother's Day and leave him alone.
Really?
Leave him alone. Yeah. I mean, they did everything the right way, I think. Well, I mean, aside from the marriage part, but they did the divorce the right way and we'll just leave it at that. But I mean, they did it. So prenup, what percentage of your clients, Laura, would you say are prenup clients? I don't think we see too many.
Well, I don't know. Not a large percentage, but I would say 20%. Either getting one. I have clients who come to me to actually review one that's been written by their spouse or soon to be spouse. So I have them that way. I've also had ones that I've drafted, and then I've had ones that come to me and say, we have a prenup, but it's not widely used.
Not a lot.
I would guess when there's more at stake.
Yes,
or, if
definitely.
there's a great disparity between the the soon to be betrothed, those are the situations. Or if there's, maybe a blending of families, those are the sort of circumstances where you're
second marriages.
Yeah. So, well, sort of in the same vein of, when things can get contentious and that sort of thing, let's sort of talk about the different ways parties can actually get divorced and, how maybe to avoid having, the War of the Roses. Who remembers that movie?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
Where you literally, burned down the house almost. So what is your philosophy, approach? What direction do you like to guide your clients, or how much involvement? Well, obviously they ultimately get to choose, but you can have your thumb.
Most people, and it's been true in my practice, and I've spoken with other attorneys, a large percentage of people see the value in trying to come to some sort of mediated agreement versus going to trial.
Mm-hmm.
Trials are just very expensive and very lengthy, and you have no idea what the outcome is going to be. There's a lot of judicial discretion in family law, and there's a lot of it's evidence, but it's testimony. So when you have one person saying one thing and the other person saying something else, back to your point earlier, how do you prove it? At the end of the day, it's who the judge finds more credible.
Credibility.
And credibility matters. And, I outline it all for clients. In mediation, you have some semblance of control. It's not total control, but you get to help in the process. And I went to a mediation seminar recently, and one of the mediators said he'll often speak to both sides, and he'll say, okay, I'm a teacher in a classroom. I have one cookie, and 2 students. What do I do? And inevitably, he says, the parties love to answer questions, and they will always say, split the cookie.
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He said he's never had anyone say, give Johnny the cookie or give Sally the cookie.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he says, oh, well, we're so close. And I'm talking about when you're down to everything except that piece of Tupperware.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Give me the lid, give her the bowl, or whatever it is. Actually, usually there's 2 pieces of Tupperware.
Mm-hmm.
Let them keep one, let them have the other. That's how it works out. And so when we can get to a really close place like that, you don't want to wait another 4 or 5 months to get a trial date, to get it set. Just,
by the way, when you mediate, it's all private. It's
yes,
it is huge.
Private and confidential.
Right.
Versus a trial and a trial record, there may not be there certainly isn't as much confidentiality.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Not in a trial record.
So when Tom Cruise has been married 3 times, each time Katie Holmes, Nicole Kidman, and Mimi Rogers, they were able to work things out quietly without having to go into court and air all of our laundry and, all the other stuff that goes on in a marriage, which is oftentimes behind closed doors as well.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it saves clients money too.
Yeah.
Yes, it saves a lot of money. And the great thing is, at least in our circuit, it is required.
Hey, sorry for the interruption. I know you're listening to the That's What She Pled podcast, and I am so happy you're here. If you have any questions, please head over to lawpoweredbywomen.com or look in the show notes to find out how to reach us. We would love to hear from you.
As a predicate.
You have to go to trial, or you have to go to mediation before you can have a trial.
Right.
And it's required because the courts recognize, the legislature recognizes mediation is a great tool.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to use the right mediator. But
absolutely.
Yeah.
Mediators matter. as do attorneys matter,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Same thing. Yeah. And as
oil and water.
practitioners,
Yes. Yes.
there are some mediators that I absolutely will never, ever use. And it's not for any reason other than I don't feel like there's an effort being made. Right. And there's a big difference between those who just really make it their life's mission to help and mediate appropriately, and those who are just sort of in the business because they became mediators and decided they could make some money.
My next step in my career.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the one thing that obviously is maybe a little different is you do ultimately, even if you are able to reach a mediated resolution, there still needs to be a final court hearing in order to obtain a divorce. In the kind of cases that Christy and I resolve, we're just filing basically dismissals and some final paperwork. Nobody actually has to go to court. Having said that, the final court hearing in a divorce case, well, you share about how that can look and how basically painless it can be.
Yes, it would be a 5-minute uncontested hearing at that point and painless, but now they are allowing us to do it via special interrogatories. So I can literally, whoever the petitioner is, their attorney can draft the special interrogatories. It's a series of questions, and it has to be specific answers. If you can't truthfully answer, then you can't do it this way. But as long as those specific questions are outlined and you can honestly answer those correctly, then all you do is submit those to the judge with the proposed final judgment that's been agreed upon by all the parties, and you don't even have to go to a court hearing.
No kidding.
So what are the interrogatories? Is it just to establish jurisdiction in Florida?
It's to establish jurisdiction, to establish that, yes, the parties, these are the signatures on the marital settlement agreement. These are the signatures on the parenting plan. Yes, we filed the UCCJEA. Yes, we have filed our financial affidavits. We are satisfied with the mandatory disclosures, or we've waived the mandatory disclosures. And yes, the wife wants her maiden name restored, or she doesn't. That one is either or. It depends on what was pled in the petition or the counter petition.
So I wouldn't imagine these are ever particularly hard interrogatories to.
No, they're definitely not hard. But the court wants to make sure that everyone is saying, we believe this agreement is fair. We believe it was entered into appropriately, freely, voluntarily, and knowingly, and all of those things. So yeah, it's the same questions they would ask at the final hearing.
Exactly.
They're just allowing you to do it in written form, sworn to, and notarized and submitted.
Interesting. That's when obviously it's been a number of years now, but the judge, not only did she ask yes or no questions, but she actually made me say my marriage is irretrievably broken. Like those words. That was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, because that was the fact. But to actually be told, no, you can't just say yes, you say those words. Oh gosh. Okay.
Yes. And that is that question is in the interrogatories. Is your marriage irretrievably broken?
Yeah. Yeah. But interesting.
I probably had the same experience, but maybe I was just sort of, in that frame of mind, that state of mind where it was just sort of answering in order to get through and be done.
Yeah.
And
that was the one thing that stuck with me. They went, oh, okay, here we are. Yeah.
All right. I'm saying this out loud.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting that they're allowing it by, well, I mean, I guess
I think the written interrogatory, I feel like that was an option when I got divorced some years ago, but in any case.
Maybe by judge. I know my judge required in person.
Oh.
Yeah. We were not afforded the opportunity not to be there. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, all right. Well, let's invoke a little bit of fun here, maybe for the last sort of bit of our pod today, and talk about some celebrity situations. Obviously, celebrities, I mean, there's usually lots of money involved and they're well-known figures. And I mean, they can even have intellectual property issues in contention. So understandably, like we already sort of chatted about, the prenup is a good sort of mechanism to avoid having all that potentially negative exposure should things not pan out.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
here, the Roseanne Barr case. Who remembers Roseanne? Oh my God, she's and this is just sort of, doesn't this fit this whole Roseanne Barr scenario? Oh
It
gosh.
does.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
yeah. So she was so Roseanne was so offended at the idea when she was getting married to Tom Arnold. She was so offended at the idea of a prenup that she actually fired the attorneys who suggested it. Well, 4 years later, and now in the midst of a divorce, one of the things that she sort of more famously said was, "Oh, we didn't sign a prenup; we signed a mutual suicide pact." Here we go.
yeah.
Well, funny how that comes to
She
bite
was
you.
regretting that decision for sure.
I think so.
Yeah,
And
I think so.
we had similar sorts of, I think when we sat down with Neil a week or two ago, there was somebody who was so offended at the concept of setting up a trust for the benefit of his children and they would become trust fund babies that he didn't do it. And then when he died and they were still young, things weren't exactly, they were going to be well taken care of. Anyway, just goes to show you,
Yep.
be careful what you think you're avoiding.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, you can do some crazy stuff with prenups. So like Chris Rock, and I don't know how to say, is it Malik?
Malik.
I don't know.
Compton Rock.
But Chris Rock.
She's a celebrity too in her own right.
I don't know who that is.
Oh, okay. I do.
Oh, well, so their prenup had an expiration date. Brilliant. So of course, Malik waited until after the expiration date. She waited until the sunset of that clause to file for divorce. I mean, yeah, which meant that then Chris, as the higher earner, he had to pay more in their California divorce. I mean,
right.
Why would you expire a prenup?
I don't know.
I wonder if that was legal malpractice. Don't you?
Yeah, I don't know California law, so I'm not sure, but
well, maybe he wasn't yet successful.
More commonly, what I've seen is a step-up provision. So say we make it 5 years, you get X amount of payout. If we make it 10 years, you get X, provided there's no adultery. They put in a lot of different things, but you get more if you stay with me longer, sort of thing. I've seen that. I've never seen an expiration date.
The old ball and chain.
It kind of defeats the purpose.
It does. That's pretty funny. Well, but it's also the alimony, the 17-year mark.
Right.
You see an awful lot of people. Well, if you're going to file, you better filing very quietly before that 17-year mark. And then suddenly after the 17 years serving the spouse or on the other hand, a spouse doing everything he or she can to make sure that relationship lasts those 17 years.
Yeah. Well, you and I, well, I can remember meeting somebody who was in an unhappy marriage, and she was the primary breadwinner, and she was about to celebrate her 17th anniversary, literally like the end of that week. And I was like, get thee to a divorce lawyer today.
Sure. Right now.
Right now.
Yeah.
You need that petition filed today. Because come Saturday, things are going to look a lot different. Which wasn't to say she wanted to screw him, her soon to be ex, but on the other hand, let's at least preserve our position here.
Permanent lifetime alimony. Oh,
right.
And that, Laura, that hasn't changed, right?
It passed the legislature, both chambers. The last time I looked last week, it had not yet been signed by the governor, I'm pretty sure. Okay. So waiting to see whether he will sign or not. Mm-hmm. He did veto the last 3 times.
Yeah, he did.
Yes. And so did the prior governor.
But they made some substantial changes this time. So it may very well be signed if it hasn't already been.
Okay.
Which would do away with permanent alimony.
And retroactivity of that would...
They say no retroactivity provision. Mm-hmm. There are some people who have concerns that that's true. Yes, maybe, but it can act retroactively in the modification provisions. So we'll see.
I know there's an unhappy contingent of sort of a group of women predominantly who are now in sort of that age in their life when they're very worried about potentially losing permanent alimony, and they've, I guess, probably been entitled to it for quite some time. So it would definitely pull the rug out from underneath.
And then on the flip side of that, you have a group of people, predominantly men, some women, who say because of the old law and the way it was, they haven't been able to retire.
Yeah.
And why should they have to work till they're 80 years old because of this provision? So I think that's part of, that's the flip side of the coin.
Yes.
The need versus, am I really going to be able to pay this? And at some point, I'm not going to be able to pay it.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll keep my opinion to myself about that particular issue. I feel fairly strongly about it.
Better or what should be.
Exactly.
I'm just saying there's two sides.
I have a strong opinion, but I'm not going to share it. Yeah.
I do think it's a generational or I mean, generational, maybe not, but from a different era of what marriages tended to look like the older folks, where people had sort of more traditional roles and
Yeah.
Anyway. All
fun
right.
Stuff. Back to fun stuff.
Back to the fun stuff. Yeah. I mean, literally, this is the fun stuff that you can cover all kinds of things in a prenup. And I think you alluded to this, but Justin Timberlake and Jessica Biel, they have a prenup. And there's an infidelity clause in it, which probably is not uncommon.
I've seen a lot of those.
Yeah.
Have you?
But he's a bit of
either party, not just in this one.
He was
I think it was if he cheats, but
I think so.
If either one cheats.
Right. And oh, by the way, they're still married. But in any case, if he cheated, he was going to have to pay some kind of a extra bit as per their prenup. Another one, Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman. He has a past substance abuse history. And so there was apparently a term in their prenup. There is a term in their prenup. They are still married, in which he was going to lose some benefits, I guess, if he fell off the wagon. So there's some kind of an inducement to stay sober. White knuckle it. No, just kidding.
Yes.
I'm sure he's happy.
It would be interesting to me to know, it says if he ever relapses, and I believe he has already relapsed.
Oh.
So that may be why they're still married.
Oh.
Or part of the reason. I shouldn't say the only. I mean, who knows?
I don't know.
Well, marriage is complicated.
It is. It is. But I think there was a point early on where there was some speculation. Of course, I don't know. You don't know. I mean, we only know what.
Thank God for People magazine,
the news,
right?
Yes.
Star magazine.
This is one I love. Only because Mark Zuckerberg and Priscilla Chan, they have a provision that says that at least one night a week they are not allowed to go on social media or use Facebook. So what does that say? They know.
They know.
Too much Facebook isn't good. It's not good, people.
Yeah.
So anyway. Okay, so here's one that just makes my blood boil. Tony Romo and Jessica Simpson, who were once engaged, they did not make it to the altar. And I suspect this is emblematic of why it didn't work. But he wanted a clause in their prenup that said she was going to have to pay him $500,000 for every pound she gained over a certain amount. So obnoxious. But I guess
really
we knew what's important to him. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's the craziest thing. Well, we've got Ice-T and Coco Austin, so they're prenup. I like this one. So this gives Ice-T the right to her breast and buttock implants if they divorce. They are still married.
What do you suppose he wants to do with this?
He just doesn't want her to have them.
He just doesn't want her to attract anybody else with those.
Right?
Oh my gosh. That's
anyway
so funny to me.
The one with Angelina and Brad.
Yes.
That's really important to note is that, and either child custody or child support cannot be waived in a prenup.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there was apparently some attempt or maybe even a provision that if he were to cheat,
Yeah.
then he would forfeit child custody.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously we know that they are having still a lot of.
Mm-hmm. Well, and now you can
there's a lot of-
agree to those terms outside of, so you can't sort of contract for them in a prenup, but you can, there's statutory child support guidelines, but you can agree to child support and all of that on your own. You don't have to abide by that statute, right?
Actually, the 12th Judicial Circuit has kind of cracked down on that notion that you can just, actually, Florida has cracked down on that. And the way it is working in our circuit, because it's not the parent's right, it's the child's right. And you can't waive or, now in theory, you could never do it. In practice, what they've done is they've created what's called a motion to deviate. So you can bring a motion to deviate, and if you can convince the judge that there's a reason why the agreement is different than what the guidelines show, then the judge can grant that motion to deviate, and it's either up or down.
So, but fundamentally,
the
judge would find that it was still in the child's best interest, presumably.
Correct.
To
Or
allow that.
like, say, I had one where dad provided all the transportation because mom just couldn't for whatever reason. So he was getting an unfair, rather than I drive to drop him off and then the ex brings them back, he was doing more of that. And so the judge did allow a deviation because of the travel expenses.
He got constructive credit or something for being the chauffeur.
Interesting.
The chauffeur.
Yeah.
And bus driver. Interesting. Okay.
That is interesting. I did not know that.
With prenups, you can agree to all kinds of crazy things like who owns the implants, but when it comes to the kids,
would hold. I mean, back to Jessica Simpson and Tony Romo, I don't know that, I've never had it. I've never researched it, but it seems like that might be one of those provisions that's like,
unconscionable or something.
Yeah.
I wonder. I don't know. You can contract. I mean, if she were willing, I don't know if she ever signed it. I don't know if they entered into it. And
what if there was?
What if she had some kind of illness or she's taking some kind of medication
would have never anticipated
that caused weight gain and she needed the medication to survive.
See, but wouldn't that then be on the attorney to drafting the prenup or her going like, no.
Legal malpractice claim.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's like us with releases. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Argue for weeks on end about terms and releases because I'm not letting my client sign that. Yeah. Same thing.
Yeah. Still waiting on one right now as we speak. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, it's fun. It's fun to think about some of these crazy things because they probably aren't likely to walk through the doors of our offices in most cases, but hey, never say
if
never.
It does, I want to know about it. I know.
Okay.
Laura, you have to let us know. Oh my gosh.
Well, this was fun.
Yes.
Thank you for entertaining us.
Well, they thinking about who possibly could live in Florida that might come through our door. Scott Baio.
Yes, I
saw that.
Yeah.
Moving to Bradenton. So who knows?
They've been hanging out on Anna Maria. Mm-hmm. I mean,
maybe he needs to update his prenup so that it complies with Florida law.
Yeah.
Is
and
he
then there's
a D-list
Mick
now?
Jagger out in Lakewood Ranch, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think he's married though. I think that's just
just his girlfriend.
Right.
But they might need a prenup at some point.
Right.
One never knows. And then I think Pink has a house out
celebrities here. Stephen King has a place on Casey Key.
Mm-hmm.
Until very recently, Jerry Springer called this a home. Yeah, it's not a bad place to spend some time if you happen to be a celebrity.
It's okay. A celebrity or anybody else. Fine.
or someone
Frank
common.
Brooks and Trisha Yearwood bought a place here locally somewhere.
Oh, I bet.
The rich and
Probably.
famous.
This.
Anyway, this was fun.
Yeah, this was
Pop
good. Thank
culture
you,
and
Laura.
family law. Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Thank
And
you for having me.
Anybody has more questions or is curious about a term that they want to include in their next prenup, then check Lora out at lawpoweredbywomen.com.
Right. We don't promise not to make fun of you.
Oh, come on, Christy.
Okay, fine. It's all privileged. It's all privileged.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes. All right. Well, that's that. And you'll hear from us in another couple of weeks. In the meantime, this is Christy, Julie, and our Laura, and we are Law Powered by Women. You can find us online. You can find us on social media. You can find us on billboards and on TV. And
Just find us.
Just find us. Yeah.
I
All
saw
right,
a
everybody.
commercial recently.
Did you? We have some new ones.
Yesterday,
We're waiting on the
Hallmark
feedback.
Channel.
Oh, that's a good place to be.
Mhm.
See?
Especially for family law.
Yes, for sure. I love that. Awesome.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
We'll talk soon.
Thank you for listening to That's What She Pled podcast. Don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and do not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Lursen Goldberg lawyers. The content has been made available for general informational and educational purposes only and may not constitute the most up-to-date legal or other information. The content is not intended to be a substitute for legal advice from your individual attorney, and the information provided does not and is not intended to constitute legal advice.